has a sort of bluey green cover, and this one a browny orange kind of cover. So let's start with Unknown London. So it says here, by the same author, the Great Fire of London in 1666, with 41 illustrations. I would really like to get that one. And also, he did a book on the Tower of London. And I also know he did a book on the plague in London, which would be another one I would like to get hold of. So it's illustrated, as you can see, with various photographs. That is the head of the Duke of Suffolk. Wow. That's amazing. It's in St. Botolph Church, Aldgate. Or at least it was in 1920. So the book was published by John Lane at the Bodley Head Limited, and it has 70 illustrations. So I think this is about the fourth printing of this book, at least my copy anyway. Yep, 4th edition, that's right. So there's a preface and then a contents. Let's read the contents. We've got the head of the Duke of Suffolk, which we've already seen over here, the picture. So that'll be an interesting one to read. Why is the head of the Duke of Suffolk in St. Botolph Church in Aldgate? We don't know. Number 2 is Remains of the City Wall. 3, the Shrine of Edward the Confessor. 4, Ghosts in the Tower of London. 5, the Domesday Book. 6, an old city merchant's mansion. 7, London's Roman baths. 8, Wapping High Street. 9, London Stone. 10, the bones of Men-kau-Ra. 11, the Bagger de Secretes. Don't know what that is. 12, London's Lost King. 13, the Pious of Smithfield. 14, Waxworks in the Abbey. 15, A Lost Invention. 16, Letters from London during the Great Plague. 17, The Bells of St. Clement's. And 18, A London Household of AD 16 illustrations. Preface. And the contents are Gog Magog and Other Giants, 2. The First British Naval Dispatch, 3. A Garden of Memories, 4. An Election of Sheriffs, 5. Anne Boleyn's Letter, 6. An Old Printing House, 7. Cribs of Old London, 8. St. Martin le Grand, 9. Sweet Stuff, 10. A Parson on the Scaffold, 11. Oliver Goldsmith's Last Home, 12. Treasure Houses, 13. Dr. Johnson's Womankind, 14. A Carmelite Vault, 15. Tombstone Stories, 16. The Apothecaries Company, and 17. London Out of Bounds. Don't know what that one's about. And then we've got the list of illustrations as in the last book. So I think what I might do is I'm just going to read the preface of both books and then start reading the different stories in other videos. So let's have a read of the preface in this book first. Let's see what Walter George Bell has to say. Herein you will find much concerning those things which everybody knows about, but nobody knows, the things you have known about since childhood, and have been content to leave them at that, knowing little of what they are and still less where they are to be found. I have dealt mostly with the big things that London has in its keeping, such as the Domesday Book. Can you tell me offhand where it is to be seen? With the Confessor's Shrine of the crowds who enter Westminster Abbey, there is a big leaven who do not even know that it is there. With the massive fragments of London's Roman wall that still survive, with that spot in Smithfield where martyrs burnt and English history was made, with the Duke of Suffolk's head. I'm really interested in listening to that one, and its dramatic story, with our Roman baths, with London, Stone, and odd others, things familiar as household words and as much apart from the average Londoner's life as are the pyramids of Egypt. Incidentally, London has the bones of one of those pyramid builders. I have not gone outside the city, save twice to our famous abbey and once to Wapping, for a breath from the salt sea, a few minutes' walk below Tower Bridge. You can cover all the ground on foot on 2 or 3 afternoons. I should lay claim to be a successful showman, for there is no charge. Everything to which this book may guide you is free. The city of London, the innermost square mile, is the richest ground for historical associations in all our world empire, and the greater pity, therefore, that it should be unknown. The lowest depth of ignorance of the city's historical places, of surviving remains of its great past, of London history, that is weaved close into the web of the nation's story, the real bottom of the abyss. You plumb in the average city man glorious example of Norman builder's craft, St. Bartholomew the Great, not St. Paul's, not but the city affords material that might fill a shelf with volumes like this. Some things are still sealed, and there I pick a quarrel with the city companies. Why are their historic halls hermetically closed, and so are quite unknown to Londoners? The churches are open for 2 or 3 hours daily, and why not they? The Tower of London now gives admission to its dungeons, which are no dungeons but are above ground, and to the Bloody Tower, but a prohibition, the good sense of which I have never understood, forbids visitors from entering. The sad little church of St. Peter ad Vincula, save after a most troublesome and roundabout process of getting written leave. I owe much to the kindness of friends in assisting me with illustrations. Canon Westlake sent me the photograph of the sand-bagged shrine of the Confessor. Mr. Henry Froude has permitted the reproduction of the shrine itself, and also of King Charles II in wax effigy from Mr. Bond's Westminster Abbey. To a like courtesy from the Clarendon Press, Oxford, I am indebted for the block of London stone which the late Sir Lawrence Gomes, The Making of London, to Knowledge, for the illustration of the bones of Menkaura Notre, and to the trustees of the British Museum for that of the coffin lid of that pharaoh. The Public Record Office, always so helpful, granted permission for a photograph to be taken of the Domesday Book, and the Reverend J. F. Marr, Vicar of Aldgate, allowed me to photograph that grim memento mori which forms my frontispiece. Okay, so let's read the preface. The second book. Okay. Why don't you write a book upon London? I have been asked. I am wholly incorrigible. Not for me are the encyclopedists. I wrote a book upon a single street in London once, to be exact, upon the 536 yards of Fleet Street that you may measure between Ludgate Circus and Temple Bar, and a truthful reviewer accused me of writing 250,000 words. I mean nothing by the phrase, accepting all reviewers as truthful, else how could they be so kind? I plead guilty to the 250,000 words, but I am not writing London complete on the same scale. With serious books of inordinate length to my name, if any reputation I may have surviving them, it must be, well, of that kind of person. My great nieces tell me that only short-sighted people read serious books. Of one such, of which I proudly claim authorship, my artist brother assured me that it was excellent, saying that he read it at nights in bed before going to sleep. I am not sure that this is